Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to dive right into a story from our source material that is, frankly, absolutely incredible. It's a narrative of immense faith, ultimate survival, and a massive, world-altering flood that changed, well, absolutely everything. Whether you look at it as history, as faith, or just as profound inspiration, it's a tale that has completely captivated human imagination for thousands of years.
Picture this for a second. Imagine a world completely consumed by violence, greed, and corruption. A place where communities had multiplied, sure, but as time went on, the general population just began to ignore what was right. People hurt one another, lied, and acted entirely out of selfishness. It paints a pretty dark, heavy picture of an ancient Earth, doesn't it?
So that sets the stage for Chapter 1, A World in Trouble. Wickedness Spreads. Now, what's really interesting to look at here is the stark contrast in this ancient world. On one hand, you've got the general population, basically defined by violence, greed, and selfishness. But then, on the other hand, there's one man standing completely apart. His name was Noah. While everyone else was going down this path of selfish desires, Noah was characterized by honesty, kindness, and this really deep faith. He chose a completely different path to try and live a righteous life. And because of this profound difference, the text tells us that God looked favorably upon him.
And because of that character, Noah received a message unlike anything anyone had ever heard before. According to the source, God issued a terrifying warning. A great flood was coming to cover the entire earth. Literally, life as they knew it would be swept away. But there was a plan. Noah and his family would be given a chance to survive this unprecedented impending disaster.
Which brings us to Chapter 2, the impossible task, building the ark. The text states that God instructed Noah to build a gigantic ark. And listen, I'm not talking about just a simple little wooden fishing boat. This was an enormous, multi-level vessel made of strong wood, sealed up carefully to keep the water out, with countless rooms for food and supplies. Building this thing was a completely overwhelming assignment, especially when you consider there was absolutely no sign of rain, no storm clouds, no rising rivers. People almost certainly laughed at him, probably calling him foolish as he worked on this massive, strange project. But week after week, month after month, year after year, he kept working. It required sheer, unwavering perseverance to trust a vision of the future that literally no one else could see. And then the ark was actually finished. Suddenly, that impossible task turns into a miraculous event. The animals began arriving. Just imagine the scene for a moment. Creatures pouring in from distant forests, open plains, mountains, deserts, pairs of lions, massive elephants, graceful deer, wolves, camels, rabbits, eagles soaring through the sky, and doves fluttering down. To put this into perspective, scholars have literally debated the logistics of this for centuries, with some estimating thousands of species converging all at once. It was this awe-inspiring, chaotic, yet perfectly orchestrated gathering of life, all converging on this one giant wooden structure. Noah knew exactly what this meant. The time had come. His family loaded up the last of the supplies, stepped inside, and the great door of the ark was shut tight.
Chapter 3. The Great Flood. The storm begins. The door is sealed. The sky grows dark. These incredibly heavy clouds gather overhead, and a deep thunder rolls across the land. And then the rain begins. But this wasn't just your ordinary afternoon thunderstorm. It poured continuously for 40 days and 40 nights. It's a terrifying duration. Rivers overflowed into raging currents. Water swallowed fields and roads, and soon entire towns just simply disappeared beneath the flood. Eventually, according to the source, even the tallest hills vanished under the rising waves. The earth was completely transformed into a vast, raging ocean. While the world literally vanished outside, inside the floating ark, there was safety above those raging waters. Try to imagine the sensory experience in there, though. You've got this giant vessel rocking violently on the waves, the deafening sound of rain just pounding against the wooden hull, and the cacophony of thousands of animals moving through the decks. Noah and his family worked tirelessly together, day in and day out, to care for all these creatures. They were this tiny floating sanctuary of life, hovering over total destruction.
Chapter 4. Waiting for Dry Land. Patience on the Waves.
So, the pouring rain finally stops, and the clouds clear. The massive ark drifts across these endless waters until it grinds to a halt upon a mountain. Okay, let's dive into this next part, because Noah doesn't just throw the doors wide open. He uses this incredibly methodical test to see if it's actually safe to leave. Step 1, he releases a raven, which basically just flies back and forth. Step 2, he sends out a dove, but it returns because there's nowhere to land. The water is still too high. So he waits. Step 3, he releases the dove again, and this time, it brings back an olive leaf. Think about what an incredible sight that must have been for a family that had seen nothing but open water for months. It meant trees were growing, life was returning. Finally, step 4, he sends the dove a third time, and it does not return. It had found a home. The earth was finally ready for them.
Chapter 5. A New Beginning. Leaving the Ark. The source tells us that God told Noah it was time to step outside. That great heavy door finally opens to this incredible rush of fresh air filling the massive ship. One by one, the animals eagerly emerge, literally spreading back out across the dry ground, heading into the valleys and forests once more. For Noah and his family, stepping out brought this overwhelming wave of gratitude and relief. They had actually survived an extraordinary, world-altering journey. And the very first thing Noah does, he builds an altar to give thanks. It's a profound moment of reflection, realizing they'd been protected through the most terrifying storm in history.
Which brings us to our final act, Chapter 6, The Rainbow Promise, a Divine Sign. God placed a rainbow in the sky. And it wasn't just some random trick of the light. According to the text, it became a lasting symbol of hope, of mercy, and a divine promise that the earth would never again be destroyed by a global flood. For thousands of years, whenever people have looked up and seen those colors arcing across the sky after a storm clears, it has served as a really powerful, lasting reminder of faithfulness and protection.
So, what should you take away from all of this? Well, remember that new beginnings can come after even the darkest storms. Noah's journey is a timeless lesson in perseverance. It teaches us about keeping faith when everyone else doubts you, and holding on to hope when a task feels absolutely impossible. I'll leave you with this to reflect on. What arcs are you building in your own life right now? And how can Noah's enduring patience inspire you to weather your own storms? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.